Hey everyone, welcome to the Tech Capital World, Kernersville, North Carolina. My name is Bobby Davis, CEO and founder of Coder Foundry, and today I'm going to give you 6 tips to land that next tech interview job. So Kevin, I think we're going to help some people out today, man. These are the 6 tips that we follow religiously here at Coder Foundry. And I want to say you that our tips are different than others because we get direct feedback from people interviewing all the time. We ask them, what did they ask you? What did they do? And this flows into our tips. In fact, we had someone interview yesterday. He's probably watching, and it's like it's an exact duplicate of what these tips are.
Yeah,
like,
it's funny because we put these tips together, and I was just like, "Hey," I was like, "You see that message that Kelly put in chat just?" I was like, "It's literally what we're talking about right now." She wrote it at 11:41. I was like, "Oh, we're just getting ready to like jump on and talk about this." I was like, "Wow, this happened yesterday."
Yeah, and his experience is exactly indicative of what we're going to tell you. So let you know that these comes from real world experience, people that actually interview for tech jobs, and what are they getting asked, what do they do, and how do they win. So
we'll come back to that exact story when we talk about that tip.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, definitely. I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. Just in chat real quick. Hey everybody. Hey Clara, Mohammed, and Tully. See your message there. Cool.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Thanks for hanging out. So let's start out. Let's go through these then. Let's start with tip number 1. It's a pretty big one. Pretty broad.
Portfolio.
I've just put the word portfolio.
Yeah, so like you need a portfolio of business applications. Specifically, you do need one showcase project. We believe that's the bug tracker. So we teach the bug tracker here in person. We teach it online. We're getting ready to release that in our new Blazor course that's coming very soon. Kevin's seen the videos in there.
I've seen the hundreds and hundreds of videos that I'm still editing.
Yeah, exactly. So we're still making it. But it's going to be, because we believe so strongly in this, having a dimmable artifact on your portfolio that someone can see pre-interview. It'll help you land an interview, and it's going to help you win an interview. And so there's 2 parts. We talked about last week. How do I land an interview? Well, you need to show proof of work, whatever. Having a showcase project is the one way to do it. Then you bring that showcase project they've already seen probably into the interview to answer questions with. So you've got to have a portfolio to do that. It needs to look good too. It can't be janky or messed up. So if your design skills are kind of limited, make sure you're using a template or something like that to design it. This isn't cheating if I'm using a template to design my portfolio. People use templates every single day to make all websites. So don't worry about that. It needs to look good so they can pass the smell test. When they look at it, like, yeah, okay, this guy's reasonable. He's got some projects. He's doing some stuff. Okay, it looks good. Yeah, if it looks bad, they'll just pass.
Yeah, if you're not a designer, 100% use a template, no question.
Yeah.
If you can do your own design work, great, and it looks good, great. But definitely get somebody else's opinion on it too. Don't just think, oh, I think that's good enough. You use a template because it's a skill, right? Taking a template and kind of carving in your design, your elements into it is a skill that if you're making sites, you're ultimately going to do that. Probably, whether it be from 100%. A third party or from an actual designer on staff, chances are you're probably not going to be doing the whole thing. You could get given a template and say, hey, I need you to put this and do this, and you're going to be working with it. It's a skill to be able to cut that up and use parts of it and put your data into those elements. That's a skill.
Yeah, and so the portfolio needs to have like business projects, more than one ideally. We here at the Coder Foundry, if you come to Coder Foundry, we're going to build 3 showcase projects. Then we're going to have 6 or 7 like smaller JavaScript coding challenge type projects. So a total of around 9 or 10 or something like that, in addition to your portfolio. So it looks more filled out and more random. If you only have one project you want to show, then make sure that's hosted. That's also branded. It's got a really cool landing page to it, and you can just work with that if that's what you want to do. But you should have a portfolio with a lot of business apps on it. Here's some ideas for business apps. Bug Tracker, obviously our number 1 choice. Blogs, number 2. And then we build an address book. Contact Pro is what we call it. And so you can do those 3 apps if you want to, or you can build other apps. But if they just solve a business problem, have a database, implement security, that's kind of where you want to do. And so like you've got to have a portfolio or you're just not going to get considered at all. So just know that if you don't have that, that's a weakness. The number 1 reason we see this online, so I've been interviewing for 658 times. I've sent out 10,000 job apps. we go look at their stuff. LinkedIn is empty and they don't have a portfolio. And that's why they're not getting a job. And
Or the portfolio's like the highlight of the portfolio is tic-tac-toe AI version or something weird these days. You know, something that's like, it's just not a great app. Pokemon Finder, we make fun of. Sorry if you made a Pokemon app or whatever. It's like,
take it off.
Shouldn't be your pinnacle app. It just shouldn't be your pinnacle app.
Probably shouldn't even be on the portfolio, but like, you know, buried deeply, you know, like into there.
Well, it's a good exercise. Well, we say this all along. There's some apps that you need to build to practice, and it's a good one because it's interesting. You have the API, but it's not at a level that's going to get you a job. It's just not.
No.
Some people don't like to hear that, but that's
the way it is.
So,
to build a portfolio, you need one.
So this leads us into number 2, because without number 1, without having the portfolio, you can't do this. You can't do number 2.
This is the number one reason people lose interviews. I believe this. And so what people don't do instinctively, here, let me rephrase this. There are people out there that says, I don't need to do this, Bobby. I could go to an interview. I win every single interview I do. And if you went and talked to those people, they do something very specific. They talk in examples natively. Like, in other words, like you ask them a question, they answer it with a concrete example all the time. And their ability to recall the stuff that they built is really good. 90% of us can't do that at all. Like, it's really difficult for us to come ask you a very technical question for you to relate that to a very concrete example. A lot of us can talk about the high level. You know, what is MVC? You know, we see that. It's a design pattern. MVC stands for Model View Controller. And that's where it stops, you know, and you give the academic answer about what that is, instead of saying, oh, well, MVC is a design patterns model view controller. For example, I built a bug tracker utilizing MVC, and over here in this controller, let me show you about how this controller works and how I implement this design pattern on a project at work. And that way you can demo the project to the answer of the technical question. That's what you got to do. So remember the keyword. This is what we try to train people at Coder Foundry is, for example. Follow a technical question, academic answer, then use the words, for example, that triggers your brain to go, let me find the concrete example I'm talking about, and then, boom, demo that answer. You can do it either from memory or you can do it from, let me show you how this worked. Bring up Visual Studio, especially these days where most calls are on Zoom or most interviews are on Zoom. And so you can just share your screen right away, you know, and say, hey, can I share my screen with you? Let me show you the code. And you've turned a closed book question into an open book test, because now you're looking at the code, they're looking at it, and you're talking through the answer with them. The other super benefit of this is technical interviews, people come in with a list of 20 questions they want to ask their interviewee, right? And we call these code trivia. You know, like they've got their 20 code trivia.
Chances are they just Googled them too, by the way.
Exactly. They just Googled them
They had
up.
5 minutes to prep before this. Their 5 minutes prep was Googling, what are the top 20 insert stack interview questions?
Right. And that's what you're going to get. So, you know, and so like you're going to get, and then, so what you want to do is you don't want to answer all 20 of those questions. Number one, that would take a long, long time. But if you're stumbling with question 1, 2, and 3, they're going to the interview's over anyway. You've got to win the first question they ask. More than likely, that's going to be a very softball opening question about a general design pattern or something like that everyone should know for you to be able to do it. You know, I asked a really simple question back in the day when I was interviewing C# devs. That I asked them, so how do you open a solution?
Oh wow, okay.
That was one of the things that I used to do, because I remember we hired a guy and then he just didn't know how to do that. And we're like, well, do we need to ask that? Well, that just means that he's never used Visual Studio before in his life. You know, that's all it is just like a warm-up question to get them comfortable, you know, and
part of your criteria is you're going to use Visual Studio. So we want you to have used it before. So it's literally the easiest question if you've done it before. But you're right, if you've never done it, it's not an easy question.
And everyone will go like, you mean like file open? Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. So you've opened a solution for it. Okay, great. And then so that's what we redid. So like these are going to be opening questions to get you and comfortable, and you take that one question, the first question, and turn it into a demo. When you turn it into a demo, you can reroute the interviewer off the code trivia questions, where they'll go start asking you questions about your code base. Like, how did you do this? How did you do that? How did that work? And And then you've won the interview at that point because they can't ask you anything you don't know about code that you've written. You've written it, you've wrote it, it's yours. So you should know how that works. We also train people is demo only parts that you have really put well to memory. Don't go to a part of the system that you haven't looked at in 3 weeks or 4 months. You know, you haven't looked at it in a while, but only demo things that you're like prepared to demo. And so you can really dictate the interview really well by saying, I'm going to take them to this controller and we can stay in that controller for 30 minutes and talk about everything that they want to know. And that's how you can control the interview. Once they're asking you questions about your project, you can in your mind say, I've got this, I've won. Yeah. I'm gonna get an offer out of this. Like,
plus, the way that conversation goes is once you're on the project, we've noticed you tend to stay on the project. They don't often then go back to the next question on the question sheet. They'll stay on and they'll be like, oh, well, our 30 minutes is up. We've spent the whole time talking about your project. That's exactly what you want to happen. And that's exactly what does happen. We've seen it. We know that's what happens.
Yeah. And some of the comments we get back from students is they don't demo projects. And then I tell them, please demo the project. And one guy went to an interview. I told him, I said, bring your laptop in and get ready to interview. And he met with the HR lady. He said, can I just set my laptop up before he gets in here real quick? He got there 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early, set it up, had his portfolio on the big screen in the conference room. This was in person. And the guy comes in and goes, wow, you've got projects and everything. And you know you're going to win at this point.
Yeah. You know, I mean, that's like throw the sheet away. Let's talk about what you got. It's easy then.
What you got,
it's easy on both sides, isn't it? Because when you think about it, you as the interviewee, yes, you can talk about this stuff for days. You've done it. It's easy for you. It's open book. But from the interviewer perspective as well, imagine put yourself in that person's shoes too. Now, all you want is somebody who can do the job. They literally prove they can do the job by showing you on the screen here. You can avoid all this like gotcha type weird stuff. You can say, oh, tell me how you did that. How'd you do that? How'd you do that? And you're right. It'll spawn questions that maybe weren't even on that sheet. They're like, oh, I see. Oh, I like what you did there. Like, why did you choose to do it that way? And then you should be able to answer that. You've worked on it. It's easier. It's way easier. Yeah.
Now, the downside is if you don't know your code base well and ask you things and you don't know about it, it can hurt you. But
if you've copied it from somewhere, it's a bad thing.
And it's not your code, or like you're just showing stuff off and you don't know how it works, then it's your job to make sure you understand every line of code that you're going to demo. That's why I say demo a portion of the system, not the entire thing, and keep them focused on the things you want them to see that you know the best, and therefore you have the best way to put your best foot forward. And I think it is so powerful. Everyone that does it always, I can't say always wins because, you know, there's always somebody that loses, but like
often.
It's often is the difference between getting an offer and not getting an offer is the ability to demo a project that you've built. And it has to be a business class project too, something that's kind of meaty. It's got some weight to it. And that's why we picked the bug tracker, because it's really, it's a really big project.
Yep. Here's another great tip you've given to in the past then as well. So it's related to this was those 20 to 30 questions, having a part of your code prepared to answer every single one of those. So not only not knowing the academic answer, but then having that hey, as soon as somebody asks me about this specific part of C#, I know that I can go to this part of my project and I can talk about that part right there. Right. I think that's key too. Yeah. So you do have to remember some things, right?
Yeah. So like what we do is we say, Google the 20 or 30 top questions, interview questions for your stack. Let's just take C# ASP.NET, for example. Go to ASP.NET interview questions. Look at those top 20 or 30. You'll find lists all over the internet. Like they'll be all over the place where they're just asking all these questions. And then go through them, say, A, can you give the academic answer? And B, can you take that and show a piece of code that answers that question? For example, if someone asks you, what's the difference between an object and a class? You know, what's the difference? You know, and so they can say, okay, in my bug tracker, I'm using these models here. These are my classes. And here in this controller, you can see that I'm getting an instance of this class, you know, and now I have an object. And so like you can do those multiple ways. And so go through the and then route them over. It so happens that on our Learn.Coder we did this. We went through with, I think it's like 90 questions.
Yeah.
We have video examples for the top 20 or 30. And so you can, even if you're interviewing for a React role, okay, say you're interacting for a React role, you can watch these videos and look at the technique of routing a question intuitive, specific answering. It's like, oh, that's how they do it. That's how they're doing it. And so like we go through all of these questions. Then even if you're looking at Blazor or something like this one's on MVC. We haven't done the Blazor one yet. It's the same kind of thing. You just get the questions, for example, and route it over to code. And though we went through tons and tons of questions here.
Yeah. There's 100.
It's a lot.
What do we have? We're up to 132. So it's actually 131 because there's an intro video.
Yeah.
But yeah, so each one of these ones that have videos attached to them too, is Antonio giving kind of the academic answer and then giving an answer within a project as well, a demo.
Yeah, that's all you do. And that's it. That's the secret. I can tell you this is between the difference of winning an interview and losing an interview is this technique here. And so you go here and you learn about how to do it. And then you just apply your stack to the same method, whatever that is. Because I realize everyone watching this doesn't use MVC or they're maybe interviewing for a Blazor role or something like that. It's the technique that's important. Google the question, look at the technique, and then practice that technique with people. Practice it.
Yeah.
Knowing how to navigate your project really quickly is another kind of skill that you got to have. Knowing how to get over to where you want to be right off the bat. I can guarantee you, if you don't have to memorize all 132 questions. One of the questions in the top 20 is going to hit you.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
Yeah,
like it's gonna be in there. If you have the top 20 down, you're gonna get 1 to 2 questions in that top 20 in any interview. It's guaranteed. They'll ask you the same. People ask the same things, and they look at the same lists.
Yeah, students that we send out to interviews, we often ask them like, "What questions did you get asked?" And especially they would generally remember the earlier ones, and they're always in this list. And again, that comes back to the point where if you can turn one of these first ones into a demo straight away, you'll just start talking about your project, and you won't get any more questions. The technical like this.
What we call taking control of the interview. You've taken control. You've dictated what they're going to ask you going forward because they're looking at your project, and that's what you want to do. And I've been accused of one of the comments from one of our videos way back in the past. I'll never forget it. Is Bobby, I'm not going to take your Jedi mind tricks. I'm like, it's not a Jedi mind trick. It's just showing you what you can do. That's all we're doing. You don't need to sit there and just take all the questions. You don't have to take them.
There's nothing underhanded about this.
The bullets. He would block them with the lightsaber. That's what you were doing, man. Just
Yeah, this is not cheating. This is not. Some people see this as like, you're cheating. You're taking over the interview, and like it's not cheating. I promise you, it's not. It's a win-win on both sides. Like I said, the interviewee gets it's an easier route talking about their project. The interviewer finds somebody who can actually do the job. It's win-win. It's so much easier on both sides. It's definitely not cheating, but it feels like cheating because it's like nobody wants to do this or thinks about doing this. Like instinctively, you kind of have to learn that this is the way that it's
just practice.
A better way to do
but I can guarantee you, people that win interviews do this instinctively. When they always talk in examples, that's how they do it. And if you interview enough people, you'll see the ones that do and the ones that can't. And I promise you, interviewing a bunch of people, when someone just answers the high level answer, you're just like, do they really know it? I'm not really sure.
Right.
If you're very specific in the answer, you're gonna instill a confidence in that interviewer. And being specific is like showing them the code, man. Let me show you how I did this. And that's super specific, and it works every time.
Let's answer a quick question while we're here because it's specific to the portfolio part.
Yeah.
Kamara wants to know, I'd like to know what kind of portfolio I should have while being in school. Software engineering technician. I already know Bootstrap, CSS, HTML, and basic JavaScript. So working on SQL and C#.
Yeah. So build some JavaScript projects right now that you can build. So we turned FizzBuzz, for example, into an app, where you can modify the values and change it and stuff like that. We've done a mortgage calculator, which is very business focused, but you can do it completely front end is another thing that we've done.
Take a to-do
list and change the way it'll work, but change the thing it's about. It could be groceries. It could be something else, workout. It could be whatever, but take a basic to-do list and do it into something else.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're working on right now, just to tell you that's in our workshop, is taking our to-do list and just changing the front end from a to-do list where you have a little line item and hit submit and just putting them on a calendar. You have the like thing and then put them in a calendar view. And it's the same app. It just looks cooler.
Right. Right. To-do list is kind of to-do list is kind of played out, right? But
Yeah.
ultimately, you're right. It's the same app. If you can do a
Weekday
to-do list
planner,
in disguise, yeah.
yeah.
To-do list in disguise is what you're aiming for.
Yeah. But I would make a portfolio about me as a developer, the stacks that I have, and put projects on there that you're already building. And then as you build SQL and C#, add them to it. And then once you're ready, once you leave school, you're ready to interview. You already got your portfolio done. You don't have to spend 6 weeks building out your portfolio now. Just keep working on it. You never know what happens. So,
yeah, with the technologies you know right now, you can definitely build some basic things for sure.
Sure,
like the apps
absolutely.
that Bobby talked about, for sure, you can do that. And then, like you said, as you learn the extras, build newer, more complex things, adding on to the knowledge that you've already built, and then just add those all into your portfolio. That's what you should be doing.
Yep.
Again, all those apps as well are on our website as well. You can learn.coder Foundry. But we have a JavaScript course, don't we? With the
I have a JavaScript course that you can take, and you end up with 6 apps out of that thing. So it's a JavaScript course that you can build all the apps that we built here in the boot camp.
Yeah, so definitely take a look at that. Okay, so where were we up to? Let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is practice whiteboarding / coding challenges, and this comes back to our example that we talked about off the rip today.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that we were talking about this, and we're saying, does people do whiteboarding anymore? We were having this legitimate customer about an hour ago, and they're like, I think they do, but it's not as important as, I think what's going around is they're giving you take-home challenges. But let's talk about whiteboarding challenges, because the guy had one yesterday. So and he had to whiteboard it up, and he was in person, I guess. And so the question was, how do you find the absolute value out of the values in an array? So you got an array of values that could be positive or negative. You have to loop over it and turn them into the positive values by passing through an absolute value function. So that's what it was. Here's my advice. It's been going on for 10 years now. It's learn how to manipulate an array by looping over an array. Either filter array, sort an array, find the values in an array, add the numbers, the total values in an array. If you can do anything with an array, you're probably going to pass about 90% of all coding challenges that you're going to get on a whiteboard.
Yeah, we see so many
because they're easy to do, they're simple to do, and the other one, the technique that you can learn about too is how do I do it without a loop, and that's called incursion. And so that's another kind of higher level technique that you can learn about. We have got a free course with JavaScript coding challenges. I think we're at 15 or so in there. You can show that. And you can go through that and look through all of those challenges that we've put together. We've collected them over a series of time. And it's not that this is every challenge you'll see, but you might get one of these. And so you already know how to do it. But if you go through these, then you'll be able to probably figure out the other ones, Yep.
This is on the free part of the program, by the way, too.
Yeah, it's free.
Get this for free.
And then I added in just recursion bonus challenge 11. So we did show you how incursion works. Basically, recursion. I said incursion. Recursion. We're not going into the multiverse. Recursion allows us to do things without in a loop, which you have to write your own end condition. So you call a function over and over again, and you test the end condition. That's pretty much the value of doing that. And once you get that pattern down, it's pretty easy to do. You can solve any of these with recursion if you want to.
Yeah. These are just based on the ones that we've seen students get a lot. And that's why we came up with these different ones. Palindrome's a big one, right? That one.
People get asked palindrome exactly like this, all the time, and then and people say I couldn't do it. I'm like, why? It's right there. It's on.
You should have practiced this. Yeah.
Practice.
Which brings up another point too. Practice when it comes to this stuff. Whiteboard challenges. If you go to an interview and somebody hands you a marker and they say, "Hey, do this on me on the whiteboard for me," it's the first time you've ever done it. You're probably going to do it pretty badly. It's not easy unless you're instinctively good at that. Chances are you probably need to have practiced that. I would suggest getting a whiteboard and writing it out and demoing it to somebody.
Work on your penmanship.
Exactly, your penmanship is a big thing. How you talk is also a big thing. You'll find yourself writing, and you'll kind of and ah maybe over your things, and you'll talk to the board Like you kind of want to like write something out and then like present it almost. It's a skill, right? It's a skill to be able to get a good whiteboard. Now, you couldn't be impressive enough in the whiteboard to be able to say, oh, okay, this person understands not only what they're doing, but they can actually talk about it too, and they can present this. That's another skill that maybe they're looking for.
Right. But that just takes a little bit of practice. So you could take those challenges I put out, write them in code, get them down, and then see if you can present them to a whiteboard and maybe get someone to check your work, something like that. See if you
also, if somebody asks you to, let's say it's reverse a string or palindrome, whatever, right?
Yeah.
If it's not the first time you've seen it, it's way easier. It feels like cheating if you've done it before. So these common ones that you know are likely to come up, just having solved them once and it not be the first time you solve it is also a massive, like, it makes it so much easier. Because don't forget, what they're not really doing here is they're not checking that you're syntactically correct on a whiteboard, right? You probably heavily rely on your IDE, right? To not only type ahead and make sure that it's all correct, your brackets are all
code,
right, and all your formatting code is done in the IDE, right? Yeah. They're not really looking for that on the whiteboard. What they're really asking you when you're asking you to whiteboard an exercise is, how do you think through the problem? You need to just talk about how you think through it logically, like why are you doing what you're doing. It's less about syntax, it's more about problem solving. Yeah. So if you've already solved the problem once, solving it a second time is so much easier.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the next thing that we're going to get is coding challenges. And usually these are take-home tests. And I've seen a lot of pushback. People say they don't want to take the take-home test whatsoever. I don't have to, and I'm not going to do it. When my advice is take the take-home challenge, it's easier than the whiteboarding, in my opinion. It's way easier because you don't have near the amount of pressure in the moment to do something directly from memory. You have the ability to Google, research, and do things like that. And I think that you're going to see a couple of coding challenges come out. Number one, they're going to say, given this API, can you write a UI that consumes this API? Okay, we call that the API challenge. We have an example challenge where you can go test yourself. We don't have the answer to this. I think it's called Galactic Relics or something like that.
We do, right? Yeah, this one up.
You can go there. There's an API that we've already built. You can go look at this, and we give you the challenge that you need to do, and just see if you can do it. The API is there for you to use, and you pull up VS Code or your favorite editor and your favorite language, and call an API. And then we have a couple of UIs that we can put together. So it's pretty simple. But a lot of times people have a hard time doing this. They have a really difficult time pulling this out. So practice ahead of time. Once you get down calling an API with JavaScript fetch or C# or Java or whatever you're doing, then the next time someone hands you a different API, it's super easy. Like it should be. This should be, if someone gives you this should be an absolute 100% home run every single time. Like you shouldn't have any problems doing this. If you're sitting out there and like, I can't do that, then you know where you stand. Like, where a junior developer should be able to do. They should be able to do a challenge like this. Yep. The second level challenge that we give is we call the full stack challenge. Now we put a whole course around this. We also have a YouTube video that gives you the first answer. And you can go to this site, and this is build an API and build a UI on top of it. So sometimes they want you to stand up an API if I gave you a database. So here we provide you with a SQL database, and then you need to build an API on top of that database. And so that's it's a different take on the same problem, but you got to learn how to consume an API and pretty much learn how to stand one up. And then we added the extra layer here of building out the UIs. And we have all the UIs here that you can go try to replicate. But you can see there's nothing elaborate about any of these challenges. Maybe this one is probably the hardest one, number 2, where we got to call a third-party API plus our other API and make them all work together. So it's kind of cool though. All right. And so we're using Chinhook as our database, and it's a music database that's free on the internet that we kind of put together. That's where Chinhook comes from.
Yep. So all these links are in the description, by the way. If anyone wants these.
I will say this: there is a YouTube video that goes through the challenge 1 here, and then you can lay off that and do the other 3 without paying us. But if you wanted the full challenge and know how to do it, there's a course in there that we have for pay. JavaScript challenges is free, and then Galactic Relics, we don't have an answer yet for it. We haven't put that together. So you can just try it out, and if you can do it, you can do it. If you can't, you can't. So
yeah, that one's almost a 5-hour course.
Yeah, it's a lot. We spent a lot of time building that out. So like a lot of time. This is also too of note. This is the new format that's coming out in the Blazor course. It has like it's both a written and a video course where we have the video, me talking, and then extremely well thought out written documentation on each interview. So if you like to read, you can do it, or if you like to watch, or if you put them together, it works really well. So,
yep.
All right, cool. All right, what's next, Kevin?
Any
questions or anything out there anybody want to know about that?
Nope. I think we're good.
Okay. Ask us questions, man. Or you can smash the like button right now.
Or did say, oof,
my penmanship.
That's always the one that I was like, I don't know, penmanship. Like I got it right on the board. Which is interesting. We used to have, when we did more in-person classes, we would do the whiteboarding exercise a lot. We had to do a thing. We had to get students to go up and do the whiteboard because it was something you'd have to do. Then it was like definitely was a necessity. Most places were asking you to whiteboard something.
Yeah. Pre-COVID, that's the way they did it for sure.
Yeah,
post-COVID, it's all on Zoom now, and so it's gone less out of in vogue. It's not, but take-home coding challenge has replaced that. You're going to get a take-home coding challenge.
Yep, definitely.
For sure.
Okay, tip 4. I'm going to call this the most controversial one on the list because people are very, very opinionated about this.
Yes. But we're right, though, so just listen to us.
we have our reasons, and I know this is going to be controversial, but dress to impress. Even
on a Zoom call, dress to impress. Even in person, definitely dress to impress. And we would say today, dress to impress today is probably a little more casual than it was, say, 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure.
If I was living 4 or 5 years ago, I'm saying guys wear a suit and tie, ladies wear something, business attire, that you would, dress up. And
I think now it's more business casual, isn't it?
Whatever.
Like it's
right. So I don't want to talk about styles necessarily. So I'm not a style guy, so like go find out what the style is. I would say be in style and dress to impress. For guys, I think that's a jacket with maybe a button-down shirt, a collared shirt, something like that, long sleeve. It's not a t-shirt. It's not jeans. And even if you're like, hey, this is my best anime t-shirt, I get it, but like, that's not what we wear in the interview,
Tell
it's
me
collectible.
Tell me about Flip Flop Guy and why Flip Flop Guy didn't get the job when he came to your interview.
Exactly.
I love the story.
So I had a recruiter call me. He says, hey, I've got a guy that wants to interview for your C-sharp position. I was like, great. And he said he is at work, but he said that he couldn't do during the day, but he could do right after work. He said 5:30 to 6. But he's coming from work and they wear business casual. Is that okay that he's business casual? So even then, the recruiter knew like what this guy should do, but he was pushing back, right? It's like, hey, I'm dressed in business casual. So I'm like, oh, business casual is fine. Don't worry about it. I'm expecting when he walks in the door, maybe khaki pants and a polo. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. That was very prepared to. The guy shows up in shorts and flip-flops. And I can remember, like, look, I looked at him, I was like, wow, you meant business casual. Like,
you could have just dropped the business part.
There's nothing business about shorts and flip-flops. And so I've always said, never wear flip-flops to an interview. Like, I've always said that forever because it becomes a true story. Like, and it just set me off. Now, if I said this on LinkedIn right now, I would get 10,000 comments about how I'm going to limit the amount of engineers that I could get access to because I have some arbitrary dress code, like whatever, right. And I'm a boomer and I don't understand how it is. I do. I'm wearing a t-shirt right now, so like, but I'm not saying that you have to wear a suit and tie or you have to wear a tuxedo. What I'm saying is if you dress to impress, you can remove any kind of negative connotation from the very first impression. What we want to do is walk in and be, oh, okay, and then get onto the interview, like that. So the same thing can hold too. Is like if you have if your shirt's supposed to be tucked in and you're trying to dress to impress, but when you show up, it's like untucked and you're all disheveled. It can do the same thing. You're like, Bobby, I wore a suit and tie to it. Yeah, but you folded it up in the back seat of the car and it was wrinkled. You can look disheveled no matter what you put on. It's just what we're saying is look neat and tidy. Probably the best way to do it is jacket plus polo button down. I don't like polos as much, but I would say long sleeve button up shirt. Be a polo, spread collar, whatever you feel like doing. But
here's kind of the way that I look at this. I'm like, you're taking a gamble here, right, on which way you decide to go. So some people are like, well, it shouldn't matter. Let's say that the company is, I don't know, Google or something, and they all wear t-shirts and shorts at Google, so I should show up to a Google interview in t-shirts and shorts. Well, here's the thing. Like, you're never going to offend the person, the interviewer, or like have them second guess you in any way if you show up wearing business casual. You're just not. Right. You're never going to have them second guess and be like, wow, this person, like, I don't understand why they... No, you're never going to do that. But there is a certain percentage of the interviewers that you may show up to that say, he wore flip-flops and shorts. Like, that doesn't work for me. While it might work for some, and maybe an increasing amount today, there's going to be the person that you are going to offend by doing that, and you're literally not going to get the job over it. It doesn't matter what you do in the rest of the interview, they will never get out of their mind that you showed up to the interview in shorts and flip-flops.
I know.
It just won't leave them. And so just get rid of that. Don't put yourself in that situation. You're never going to offend somebody business casual. So just do that. It's easy.
And I would say that if you're a lady out there, I didn't mention ladies, whatever you wear, but like, when I say business casual, you know what I'm talking about. Like, so like, consult someone that knows the current styles, the current whatever, and go get that outfit and just wear it to every interview. You can wear the same outfit to every interview.
Yeah. This isn't the Oscars.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not going to know you wore it last week to the Grammys.
Yeah, it's like we saw that pantsuit last week at ABC Company, didn't we? Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's not going to matter. Yeah, you're right. Just have one decent thing. You're right. Make sure that you look presentable. That's it. You just
and you feel comfortable in it. And that's the other thing too. So, but I think mainly business casual still the way to go. Nice suit jacket with a button-down shirt will work. White shirt, blue shirt. You don't have to, if you know how to put stripes and plaids together, go for it. If you don't. Just wear a white and blue shirt. We have to do this at Coder Founder because we literally, I don't know if you remember this, back in the day, pre-COVID, when they were in person, they would come here and every Monday we had Dress Up Monday, every Monday for 12 weeks. So they had to put on their outfit. They had to test interview with us. And the reason we did that was, number one, we wanted to critique their outfits before the interview process started for real. And then we also wanted to see how they performed in an in-person interview every week based on what they'd learned in the last week. And so that works really well.
Students hated those Mondays, but...
They hated them, man. Like, I know, but like, it's just the way it is, We don't do that anymore here. But we want people to still dress up. If you go to a real live interview, dress to impress and get used to doing it, and you'll feel more comfortable in it as you do it.
Definitely. I like this. I like Rodrigo's thinking here. Unless you're up for a challenge and is trying to get the job despite wearing shorts and flip-flops.
You better be really good, man.
you better be really, really good. Because you're right. The right person will look past it. But if you get the wrong person, like I said, that just will never be able to look. They'll never be able to. Yeah. They will never be able to tell somebody, yes, I hired that person despite the fact that they wore flip-flops. They will just never be able to do that. So they won't. Yeah. They'll just pick the second best person.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's bad.
And they'll feel like they have an attitude. There's some other kind of like cultural fit problem that they have, or some kind of like maybe they're gonna be hard to deal with. Maybe they just don't. Yeah, they won't conform to anything whatsoever. So like every time I ask them to do something, they're like, "No, bro, it's Monday." So,
right.
I only work on Tuesdays, so Mondays. No, I'm not doing that. And so you'll realize that's what they'll think. And so what we want to do is overcome all of those objections. Remember the goal of this. The whole goal of this is to get an offer. And that's what I tell everyone all the time. Do all the hoops that you have to jump through to get the offer, because that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. And then decide on the offer at the end. And we'll get to offer here in a second, tip 6. But
yeah, that's true. Because you go through all these things. Let's say that you ultimately you don't want the job. We'll get to that part. But let's say that you don't even, it turns out it's not even the right fit for you. You want to make that decision. Like let you make that decision. Like get the offer. Like at least get to that point. At least get to that point as a minimum. Like we see people just shoot themselves in the foot sometimes, which we will talk about in a second as our 6th number tip. Let's do number 5 first. And number 5, a big one, is follow up.
Follow up. There's 2 kinds of follow ups. Number 1, you go to an interview, it's pretty successful. You follow up and you say, "Hey, thanks for the interview. I'm really interested in the job. There's 3 reasons why I think I'm a fit for your organization. Here's the things we talked about." So you can use AI to craft this, but you need to put your own flavor into it so it references the interview experience you just had, so that whoever you're talking to realizes that's not just a generated, email they just sent out. Reference particular things that you talked about and 3 reasons why you're fit. And that's really important here. So like if you have a portfolio project, you can reference that. Hey, I think the buck track I showed you when we talked about, controllers, reference shows you that I have the skill set to do it. So that's kind of what you do. The second follow-up is how to save a bad interview. Let's say you go to that whiteboard challenge and you freeze and you don't know what to do.
Yeah. It's happened.
And it happens all the time, or you muff it and you just mess it up. You're just like, well, that was just terrible. What was I thinking? I'm an idiot. And so most people they walk off the interview and they're like, well, I'm not getting that one. It's like, next. But what you can do is say, hey, you asked me that whiteboard challenge. And to be honest, like I just froze because I was nervous. But I took the time to go ahead and think about that when I had more time. And here's my answer to that. And boom, and send it in. And sometimes you can turn a no into yes by doing that. Sometimes.
Yeah, and again, we've seen that. We've actually seen it happen. We've seen students code something up and send something in and send a GitHub in, or a live, an actual published web app version of the challenge they were asked.
That's what I would do.
They have been offered the job. We've seen it.
Yeah, I would go over and above, because what you don't understand is maybe they didn't grade it as harshly as you thought about. Maybe they're like, yeah, it was pretty good, or maybe the other people did really bad. So now they're like, who's the one that we could get out of this 5 people we interviewed? And then you send in a working demo. They're like, that's the guy we want. He went above and beyond and put in some effort. And all this effort that you put in is only going to help you get stronger at interviewing anyway. So just keep developing your skills by doing this. And I think, 3 reasons why you're a fit. Reference something in the interview in your follow-up email. If you failed a coding challenge, send them an example of a published website. Put a UI on it, whatever it was. If you have like the one we got, you got a list of integer numbers and you return the absolute value of each number. Just display it on the screen, allow them to put in numbers up here and then say solve, and then it comes up with the answer, something that simple, that they don't have to go back and look at the code. It gives them real easy, 1-click button, stick it on Netlify for free, send it over to them. That's what I would do.
You also mentioned it's another opportunity to talk about your work again as well. So it's another opportunity to send them a link to your published bug track or whatever project and say, here's a project. We talked about this, but let me tell you about this other feature too that I just implemented or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Another opportunity just to get them to look at it.
Yep. And there you go. And that's what you do. You keep following up. If you don't follow up, it's hard to win. You got to stay top of mind. Leave the last impression be a lasting impression. That's what I always say. Make your last impression a lasting impression, which means that you show something really cool. And they're like, wow, okay, I think we're going to hire him, because you get the last word in.
And we talked last week too about the the tracker that we use. So this follow-up is also on that tracker as well. That's where you should be connecting and following up and sending emails and connecting on LinkedIn or messaging on LinkedIn. So we talked about that last week too. So you can go grab that tracker as well on Google Docs. You can use that to manage your follow-up.
Right.
Okay, let's go to our final tip then.
And so this is controversial too. Like I get this every single cohort that we teach. We say, take the first offer. And I get like 1,000, yeah, but whatever, this, that, Yep. And pretty much what I believe is you take the first offer you get. Okay, if it's for money and it's a real company, a real position, realize that the first offer is not for the money or the location or even what you're doing, is for the experience. Once you get 1 year of experience as a dev, your world changes as far as your ability to land the second job. And so like the first job is just the first job. I mean, like most of the people that interview, and you've had more than one job before. So they always look at like this coding job as the last job they're ever going to have.
Yeah.
And it's simply probably not true. It's probably not going to stick here for 50 years and do this one company. More than likely, that's not the case. But take the first offer that you get so you can start building the experience as quick as you can. Now, let's say that you felt like the offer is kind of low. What should you do? And I always say, take it. This isn't
Right.
the time for you to like renegotiate new offers or whatever like that. Because we've seen that offers can say, well, okay, and then they rescind it because they feel like
100%
you're
we
too
have.
expensive.
Yeah.
They feel like you won't take the low offer when you're just trying to get as max as you can. So you need to know two things. Number one, what am I willing to take in this market? Number two, you need to be reasonable and of your expectations of what you think you're worth. And so I would say somewhere under $100,000, is where you're going to be, and you're going to be closer to 50 than you are to 100.
Right.
You know,
In most
And
markets,
so,
yeah.
yeah. So if someone offers you 50K to work in a dev job, or you can't counter with 90K. You just can't. You're not going to get it. And it's going to get rescinded, and you're going to lose the offer. And they're not trying to lowball you. That's kind of what a junior dev gets paid. And so remember, take the first offer, get the experience. If they've lowballed you and you're sitting there in a dev job making $27,000 a year, which would be really low, all right? Take it, go do it, keep interviewing. And if they lowballed you and you get a better offer, 40K 3 weeks later, leave and jump. That's on them for lowballing you. That's
You now have another item on your resume, actual experience doing it, getting paid for it. The next company doesn't know what you got paid at the last place.
Yeah, right.
They don't know that they totally lowballed you at 27.
Yeah, right. And so then you manage this career upwards to that 100K. And we always call it a road to 100K, which is like you manage upwards over 5 or 6 years, you can get there, or maybe 3 to 4, depending how good you are. So that's what you do. And so instead of like rejecting the first offer because it wasn't good enough or something like that, the thing is, look realistically where you'll live and work. What are your commute times? Be realistic about that. We've had a lot of times we talk to credit finance students say, I want my commute to be 7 minutes, and they live in a small town. It's like
you joke, but it's just true.
Like,
that's why it's funny.
We will try. We'll look in that small town. We'll find the one company that's hiring devs in your small town, and we'll hope they can hire you. But I would say that given today with cars, and you have a car, a 45-minute commute isn't unreasonable for your first job, or even a 50-minute commute isn't unreasonable. And it seems like, wow, I'm going to die if I don't have a 5-minute commute. The
5-minute commute comes on the second job, the third job. That's when it gets easier. That's when you can be more picky about that stuff. We've seen students fall into both of these buckets, haven't we? Ones that are unwilling to be flexible and ones that are flexible. We've had students that have taken a job in the middle of nowhere. They've literally moved their life to go to the middle of nowhere. 1 year later, they came back to their hometown making double the salary at a different job. They just did it for a year.
Right, did it for a year. And so I would say relocation is something you should consider too, especially as the market gets tighter. If you look at, 2017 to 2022, it was hot, man. You could get jobs everywhere. Now we need to look harder and maybe we find something that's not necessarily remote. Maybe you have to relocate a little bit. Maybe you have a longer commute. All of those things just to get the first offer. Now, once you have a job doing it, then the next interview process is much easier because you're already employed and you can turn down things and you can say, no, let's not count what I'm looking for. I've already got what I'm doing. And you continue to build experience as you're getting paid. And then you find the next job that's a perfect fit when price, location, what you're working on, all those kind of things, and as you go through your career, then you can get even more picky, when you're 3 to 5 years in, you can just only take the perfect position and you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, we've seen students on the inflexible side who have had an offer and maybe it was a move or maybe it just wasn't the right money or whatever it was. It was often something quite minor, and they haven't taken that first job, and we have literally seen them never ever break in. They only ever got one offer. Because what happens is your skills are at peak and you're interviewing when your skills are at peak. You get that offer and you don't keep increasing your skills, and then that second offer maybe comes 6 months later, or it just never comes because you've not kept your skills up. And now it becomes really, really difficult. Like when you're straight out of education and you're trying to get a job at the same time and everything is fresh and new, it's much easier. As soon as you let it stagnate a little bit, it becomes way more difficult to get that
so
first
land
job.
as quick as you can. And then things like we've had people turn down jobs because of the way. It's just the craziest thing.
Well, hold on. This comes to this question, which I'm sure you're going to talk about. Do you still recommend number 6? There's obvious red flags for a toxic work environment.
Yes, I would say take it. Like that's what I'm saying.
I would say
So,
it
like,
depends. Depends
it
on what.
depends. It depends. I mean, like, so let's say, so I don't know what people mean by toxic. So I think people skew to like everything's toxic
Yeah.
anymore.
It's your
So,
personal
like,
level of toxicity, right? This is
yeah.
yeah.
Are there deadlines? That's toxic. Well, there's going to be deadlines in what we do. So, like, obvious red flags are: am I going to get paid?
Yep.
Those kind of things. Is the company stable? That kind of stuff. Those are problems. But you can still even take those where you say, I'm going to do this for 6 months to 1 year and I'm leaving. Like, this is bad. Now, if they're beating you with a stick, there's difference between like toxic environments, that stuff you can put up with, and then illegal activity. I wouldn't work for a company that's, soliciting, you're running a website to sell drugs to,
Right.
illegal, like illegal
Right.
illicit drugs. But so, like, as long as it's in the realm of possibility, we had a guy turn it down because he didn't like the president, the vote, the way the guy voted. And it's just like, well, that's not toxic. It's not a red flag. He voted for someone else and you voted for someone else. Like,
Yeah,
okay, you just
yeah.
can't work for someone
They,
that voted
but
for
they
someone
weren't even
different. Like,
working directly for the person. It was like
I
the
know,
guy just
yeah, I
owned
know.
the company. You'd never see this guy.
Exactly.
It was a
You're
big
never
company.
going to see him. You're not going to hang out with him. You're going to be in your cube land,
Yeah.
putting stuff, building websites. So I think you have to be very careful about that one. What I would say, Claire, is like you need to have clear boundaries of what that is, or you'll just never take anything. What I'm trying to say is, don't look for the perfect position, because you may not find it. We do have to learn to get along with people and work with in different environments, and that's good. So I don't know what people mean by toxic. Are they going to yell at you every single day?
Well, it could be anything, right?
That's different.
But you always
Yeah.
just have to remember, the smaller you make your pool, based on whatever rules you want to
Yeah.
put on yourself.
Yeah.
You won't
harder
work for
it
somebody
is.
who voted for somebody else, or you won't work for a certain type of company that does something that you don't morally agree with. That just makes
Right.
your pool smaller, and that's okay. But just understand that you're making that pool smaller, and it's going
Just
to be
making
more
it smaller.
difficult.
For example, like here in North Carolina, I probably wouldn't work in in one of the cigarette factories, a tobacco place. So like, why?
Right, but that's
I
the
don't wanna
line
be-
you've drawn. There are people that
Mainly-
work there, though.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
development.
And I don't think they're evil because they do it. What I would say is mainly because of the environment would be like there's smoke everywhere, and I don't want to inhale smoke every day. That would be the main kind of thing, that kind of stuff. So, but if you have that kind of thing, just know what it is and don't even go through the interview process. Then if
Yeah.
that's the way it is.
Yeah, you just have to decide where your own personal line is, I think, when it comes
Yeah.
to that stuff. But again,
Yeah,
just
just
know
know
everything
that
you rule
there's gonna-
out, smaller
Yeah.
pool.
There's going to be deadlines, and there's always going to be deadlines, and managers have different style. There's going to be micromanagement all the time with junior devs. I'd say embrace that because
You
it
want that.
helps you train instead of the other one, which is like, just gonna let you do you, and then you get fired 4 weeks later and you don't know why because you didn't turn anything in. So there's until you get really experienced about how to integrate into a company, just take the first offer, do the best you can do, be the best employee you can be. And then if it's super toxic and you can put up with it, just put those feelers back out there. And in 6 months to 1 year later, you'll land a new role and everything will be right in the world. We can usually do almost anything that we need to do for a little while.
Just use it as it's an opportunity. You're adding something to your resume that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
We know that first experience that you can actually put on there, getting paid as a developer, is killer. We know that second position is just way, way, way easier to get than the first one is. So,
Yeah.
like I said, take the first offer, even if it's not perfect, because it won't be perfect. Chances of it being
won't
perfect
be.
are pretty slim.
Yeah. And then, then use what we're saying is use experience to leap to the next one. So it's hard to get to the next one without any experience. You got to start somewhere. And honestly, when you're getting your first job, you probably don't want to get 20 offers. I mean, you only get one. So like, just take it. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, I think that's the misconception a lot of times, isn't it? That
Yeah.
we've seen students go through. They're like, well, that offer came fast. Like, I've only been looking for 2 weeks. I got that offer. So therefore, I feel like I'm going to get a bunch more. So because that one's not perfect, I'll just wait for the next one. And then the
Right.
next one never comes.
Right. Yeah.
And that's it. You're now stagnant. Your skills have gone down because you haven't kept learning. And now you just never, ever break in. You go back to doing whatever you were doing before.
Right.
And that sucks. That sucks because you've probably spent a whole bunch of time, a whole bunch of money learning, a whole bunch of just effort on your part just to see it thrown away because you didn't take that first offer.
Yeah.
So
Get started as fast as you can. That's all I can say is like as fast as you can land, take it and just put your head down and write code. Most of the time, most of coding positions are like that. So some of the stuff you see as red flags probably won't happen to the developers because they're usually coding all day. So
Right.
they're away from all the other stuff that goes on.
Also, do
Yeah.
people really feel
Yes, they do.
toxic?
Yes.
We've had all kinds of things just like, well, hold on, isn't that a job? Like, people will be
Yeah,
like,
that's
that's
the
toxic.
job.
Like,
I mean, like, that's
that's
not
the
toxic. He asked you to do it by Friday, and you're like, I can't. Okay, well, communicate, work with them. It's not toxic. He's just, and sometimes some managers have unrealistic, expectations. They do.
Right.
And so you just got to like learn. That's part of the learning process of working there. It's like communicating like how hard this is or how difficult this is, or here's the problems I'm having. Let me work on it, that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen all kinds of things that people feel are toxic. It's just like, that's just the job. It'd be like,
That's
it's like
just the
crazy
job.
things like, it'll be like the benefits aren't great or something. It's like it's
they want
toxic
me to
or like,
be there at 8:00 in the morning.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But I live an hour away. Like,
Okay.
Yeah,
You have to leave at
that's
7.
the job. Like,
it's just not
really?
toxic.
Yeah. But again, the line's in different places for different people, I guess. So whatever you
Yeah.
consider toxic is different for different people. It's not a universal truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I say I don't listen to that, because I think people have there is no strong line for that. Whatever your red flag is may not matter to me whatsoever. Like, yeah, I get it,
Yeah. We've certainly
Um,
seen in the last kind of decade, politics has been a big like differentiator for people.
It still
Like,
is. I mean, like, still
yeah,
is.
it still is today. And we had one person go to a company and they had like a flag up of one of the candidates at the time, whatever. This was a while ago, but they're just like, I can't work there. Like, okay,
like,
I mean that's
what?
that's your red flag. That's your line. Okay, but just know that
Yeah.
that's literally 50% of the population. So, you
It's
kind
just
of
the way it
you're
is,
taking
man.
out half the pool straight away. Just be apolitical, right? Just it doesn't matter. Just if
And I
collect
think
a
you can
paycheck,
learn.
collect a paycheck.
I do think it's as a skill as we navigate the workplace, and in more than coding, is just working with people that have different beliefs and views on things, and being able to work with them in a constructive way. It's okay. I mean, like,
You're gonna
like
have to. It's
you have to, man. It's just the
You
way it
have
is.
to.
And you can have strongly held beliefs too, but you just don't, you don't need to project it onto everybody that you see. And they're not typically aren't projected onto you. I would just say, just remember, you're managing your career. Just look at this as like the little me company. I'm managing my career. The number one thing I need to get is experience. Then once I get experience, I can branch out and do bigger and better things. And I don't have to put up with this, that I have to put up with at this first job, So
Yep.
that's it. That's my offer.
almost
Thank you
gave us
for
a
something.
video idea too. I'd love a video on some examples of a typical junior dev tickets and expected turnaround times. I'm not sure there's anything typical, is there?
No,
I don't know,
it's going to be all
the
over the
problem.
place.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and so like so there's a couple things being when you're in your first job that's good and bad. Number one, you're the lowest paid person in the room probably, and on the development staff. Honestly, you're going to get the same tickets the other guys get. Like, it's just that you may need more help from people around there. And so like, I would say the number one reason devs don't do well is they won't ask questions, try to clarify
Yeah,
what
because
they're
they
trying
feel
to
like
do.
it's being weak, right? It's like imposter
Yeah,
syndrome.
exactly.
Like, oh, I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm doing. How did I get this job? I feel
Yeah.
weak asking somebody this question.
Yeah. And the turnaround times are going to vary by company widely, but I would say communication is the thing that you need to practice of like, I need to get more information. I don't know how to do this. How do I do this? Maybe you talk to a mid or a senior dev or your dev manager and they can help you kind of solve it, that kind of stuff. And maybe there's no help and you got to Google everything, like that's happens too. You're the only person there. We've had a guy here, they've
Yeah, recently, right? He's just
the
the only
only
person there.
Yeah. And so like he just had to figure everything out, but like he could because he went to the boot camp here and we taught him to it's hard, like you got to figure it out, and that's what we do as devs. So I think that's great.
Cool.
All right, I hope that helps you out, man. Like, subscribe, do all, smash the like button, and
do all the YouTubey things.
all the YouTubey things, and we'll see you the next time and talk about something else next week.
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing next week. Actually, maybe we'll do another follow-on from this. I don't know, another
Yeah.
tips for something video. I don't know what. We'll
Leave
think
a
of something.
comment below if you would like us to do something else. If you want something, put a comment in there, and we'll try to see if we can put it in there.
Yeah, definitely. We're open to ideas. So,
and we'll give you credit. We'll put your comment up.
100%.
This is what they want us to ask. So.
There you go. Cool. So we'll be back again next week.
Keep cutting, guys. See you.
See you later.